So much of our study of Tanakh revolves around Parashat Shavua, whether it's Shnai Mikra V'Echad Targum, the Shabbos Drasha, the weekly Parsha Shir, that we sometimes lose sight of the fact that Tanakh wasn't meant to be studied that way, and that they're not isolated narratives. And sometimes we risk losing some meaning and some understanding by studying each of the Parshiot, or the weekly Sedra, in isolation. And this week's Parsha may be a perfect example of that. So the Parsha opens Vayigash Elav Yehuda, a famous standoff between Yehuda and Yosef. And while we take at face value, and certainly as younger children, that Yehuda stepped forward to address Yosef and try to mount a defense on Binyamin's behalf. But the Abravanel famously asks, he says, listen, as a veteran of the royal court, I can tell you that it's highly unlikely that Yehuda, as a petitioner, would physically approach the ruler. That's just not how the royal court works. You keep your distance with humility. We know from Megillat Esther, the rules about the royal court and approaching in some fashion without permission and without being called upon. And if you think about it, even in Western society, an attorney in a courtroom has to ask permission from the judge simply to approach and speak more directly to the judge. Even in a Western courtroom, it's not considered appropriate for a petitioner, if you will, to simply approach the judge. And so it says Abravanel, it's just not at all likely that that's what Vayigash Elav Yehuda means. And then a number of the Mefarshim give a number of different suggestions as to what it could possibly mean if it doesn't mean that he physically drew near. But Rav Yehuda Shaviv, in his Sefer Misinai Ba, has a wonderful insight and suggestion, which he actually credits to a group of academics that he was studying Tanakh with, who had a very unique and different perspective, which he embraced. And their suggestion was that Vayigash Elav Yehuda, the Elav is not Yosef. The Elav is actually Binyamin. And then the visual becomes not Yehuda stepping forward towards Yosef in order to petition on Binyamin's behalf, but rather Yehuda moving to Binyamin, who is now incredibly vulnerable, who's been isolated from the other brothers and singled out to bear the punishment for this crime. Yehuda is now coming as the protective older brother, standing next to Binyamin, putting his arm around Binyamin's shoulder, and saying, at the same time that he's saying to Binyamin, he is now speaking to Yosef from that vantage point and saying to Yosef, we are not leaving without our brother. And it's very possible that that is what swayed Yosef. Not so much the words that Yehuda says. There's very little new in Yehuda's speech that Yosef hasn't heard before. It's the act of supporting the isolated and vulnerable brother, which harkens back, of course, to the whole experience that Yosef had with his brothers, where he was isolated and vulnerable and they abandoned him. They left him in the pit to die or to be sold while they went about eating and drinking and going about their business. And here, so many years later, Yosef has created a scenario where another one of Rachel's sons has been isolated, is vulnerable, but now he sees Yehuda speaking on behalf of all the brothers. Instead of distancing themselves from Binyamin, Vayigash Elav Yehuda, coming close to Binyamin, supporting him, letting him know that they will stand by his side and not abandon him. And I think if you look at the last pasuk of the previous parsha, I think this actually lends some significant support to Rav Shaviv's suggestion, because the last pasuk of the previous parsha reads as follows. This is Yosef responding to Yehuda's first suggestion that maybe there's another way to resolve this incident instead of having Binyamin pay for his crime. He suggests that that the brothers should be punished collectively. And the last pasuk of Parshas Miketz is Yosef saying as follows: Vayomer chalila me'asos zos. God forbid I should execute judgment that way. He says, Ha'ish asher nimtza hagavia biyado hu yieli aved ve'atem alu l'shalom el avichem. So 3 phrases in a row where Binyamin is not named by name, but clearly the subject of these words. Ha'ish, that's Binyamin. Asher nimtza hagavia biyado, that's a reference to Binyamin. Hu, a reference to Binyamin. So 3 times you have a third-person reference to Binyamin in that last pasuk. And then, yes, we start a new Parashat Vayigash, but it's the next pasuk in the Chumash that says, Vayigash elav, another third-person reference, where it's not 100% clear who it's referring to, but there's, I think, very good reason to believe that coming on the heels of a pasuk, and the last part of the pasuk that talks about Ha'ish and Biyado and Hu, those are all references to Binyamin. And then the very next pasuk, Vayigash Elav Yehuda, I think there's very good reason to believe that the Elav is a reference to the same person that's referred to as Ha'ish and Biyado and Hu, namely Binyamin. And so it's this act of leadership, Yehuda being the paradigm of Jewish leadership, of recognizing the vulnerability of a member of the Shvatim, a member of Klal Yisrael, and instead of saying, "Oh, thank God it's not us, we have work to do, let's go back to our father," instead of that, he approaches the vulnerable one, stands by his side, says, "We're in this together. We are one family and ultimately one nation." That act of solidarity, of support, ultimately changes the tide of Jewish history. That's what sways Yosef, and that's what brings about the reunification of the family that's destined to become Klal Yisrael. Shabbat Shalom.